Thank you very much for being here. Again, sorry for being late. My mistake. So thank you. Today we're going to talk about rules that Microsoft has or live and that Microsoft will start enforcing in next couple of weeks and months. Nothing urgent, but needs to be done anyway by the end of the summer. So I'm Erik de Bond, the platform manager at TD SYNNEX for this kind of stuff. If you have questions, remarks, please unmute yourself. Talk to me in either German, French, English, or Dutch, or you can use the chat window. And I hope my colleagues will inform me when there is a chat in the window, because I can't see it. I have only one screen at the moment. So what are we talking about? Basically 5 rules. 1 and 2, obviously the most important one. 3, 4, and 5 are also there, maybe less important, but important anyway. So let's see them one by one. So first rule is, and this is the announcement from Microsoft, that you can read the full text, but I try to summarize it and put some extra context around it. So what are the rules? So as an indirect reseller, to be associated with a purchase, you must have an active CSP tenant, which is all okay in your cases. You must have accepted the Microsoft Partner Agreement, the MPA. You need to be in the same region as your indirect provider, meaning that you cannot associate yourself with a distributor in Africa or in Americas or Far East. It's not possible. You need to be in the same region as your distributor and also as your customers, by the way. And you need to share your PLA ID with your indirect provider. I come back to all these wordings later on. Failing to comply will make you unable to buy new subscriptions. At first, at later stage, maybe also deny LCM, lifecycle management, and deny upgrades and deny renewals. First impact will be that you will not be able to sell any more new subscriptions to your customers. If it continues to be not okay, then Microsoft will suspend your tenant and all GDAP rules will be taken away from your environment. So you will not be able to manage your customers using the PAC environment. Now, what is basically on the screen, let's see some of the wordings. So the indirect reseller, basically that is you. That is Microsoft in all documentation. If you see indirect reseller, basically it is you. Indirect provider, that is your distributor. So in this case, it is TD SYNNEX. In all documentation, if you see indirect provider, it refers to a distributor. If you see indirect reseller, it refers to you. Okay. So the partner agreement, something needs to be signed once in the region. If you're not sure that it is signed or accepted, these are the steps. Go to Partner Center, go log in with your global admin, go to the settings, right top of the gear icon, settings, legal info, partner tab, programs info section, and there you can see the T's and C's of the MPA, and you can also should be able to accept it on that level. If it says okay, accepted, then you're set and you're done. Mostly it will be okay. The PLA ID, what is a PLA ID? So you have multiple MPN IDs, and I'll come back to that later. And one of those, or multiple, is a partner location MPN. And that's important because it's basically on your MPN ID that you do business with. So how does it look like? And also, yeah, you need to accept the reseller agreement. It's a link that has been sent to a lot of you where we saw that there was no reseller agreement yet. Needs to be assigned, need to be accepted by you to be officially named by Microsoft as a reseller via TD SYNNEX. Okay, so your partner location MPN, what it is, so you have at least 2 MPN IDs at Microsoft. One partner global, which is basically an umbrella. So it's just there, and everything else is under that same umbrella. So you have partner locations. You can have one, or we can have multiple. Give an example. Here in TD SYNNEX, we are in the Benelux region. We have one global, and we have 5 or 6 locations. For Belgium, we have 3 locations, for instance. That's historically growth like that, but you can have multiple locations. It can also have multiple locations associated with CSP. So where can you find it? Go to the settings module in PAC. So the gear icon, account settings, go to your organization profile identifiers. Under the Microsoft IE Cloud Partner Program, you will see your partner local or multiple and one partner global. What interests us is the partner location. And if you're on the tenant that you are, you can see on the CSP tab, you can see what is the local MPN used on that tenant where you logged on. So you can have multiple tenants, as we have, that are CSP enabled. You can only see the actual CSP of that tenant if you log in that tenant and go to the settings, as described on the page. If it's not okay, or you want to verify the one we're using in Stream1 Ion to link all purchases you do with your MPN, you go to the Stream1 Ion environment, you go to the partners, you select TD SYNNEX Belgium, that should be the only one that is there. You go to the programs, select Microsoft CSP, and then you see if your partner ID there is different from the one which is under your CSP MPN ID, then you click on request. You fill in a new ID, and then you say save. Yeah. At that moment, the request is sent to our backend team, who will change the MPN in Stream1 Ion, but also on all active subscriptions under the old MPN ID, so that the link is still there. Impact is that while this is being done, it roughly takes a day, that you will not be able to manage your subscriptions whilst this change is going on because it's a synchronization issue between Microsoft and our environment. We do it typically after the billing cycle of Microsoft, so basically meaning also at the second part of the month. Starting from 15th of the 16th of the month, we start doing these actions. So if you do it like next week, being June, you can do the request, no sweat. You can continue working with the existing MPN. All LCM, all purchases will be done and correctly done. When it is changed, at that moment, you will have a day where you can basically not manage your licenses. If it's something urgent that day, contact us and we'll do it for you. Okay. Questions, remarks? I don't see any in the chat. Okay. Otherwise, you can unmute yourself. Rule number 2. It is on your own tenants. So we're going to talk about the tenants you are using today to do your business. When Microsoft created a tenant structure to manage via CSP, their idea was you log into PAC, you have a link with your customers, and you start managing your customers using the PAC environment. A partner center, we abbreviated to PAC. We know that a lot of our resellers have, for every customer, a global admin account to do the management. If that works for you, fine for us. It's not because Microsoft created something that we need to follow exactly the way they intended it to use. There is also no penalty. It's allowed to work like that from Microsoft side, but there are some risks. For instance, if you use the PAC environment, MFA is always enforced. You will have noticed that you cannot go into the partner center as on your CSP without MFA. If someone leaves the company, you disable the account, automatically that user cannot access your customers anymore. So that's a security risk you have if you have a list with all the username and password of all customers, or a vault. Someone might have copied those credentials and take them with him or her when he leaves the company. And again, you need to accept the reseller agreement. So So in red, the risks if you work with a local account, they can go wrong. People can copy the risk. If someone leaves the company, they can still access your customers. Maybe you don't want that, and it's not the way Microsoft wants to work. So how is it mostly set up today? You're in the middle of the slide. On the right side is your customers. On the left side is TD SYNNEX. So you see you have your tenant where you do your office environment. So your Exchange is there, your Teams, SharePoint, OneDrives, whatever you do is on that tenant. And mostly you will also have or use that tenant to manage or to sell your CSP licenses to your customers. No sweat, it works today, but it's not the same way Microsoft wants you to work. Now you see on the left side at TD SYNNEX, you see our office production environment, which is at tdsynnex.com. We don't do any CSP on that tenant. All our CSP is done using a local .onmicrosoft.com tenant where we log on to do the management. For instance, for us, it's TD Belgium that we use to manage our customers and to do everything we do in CSP on that tenant. There's a security advantage in the sense that not everyone at TD SYNNEX needs to have access to our Microsoft tenant environment, to our CSP environment. Even within our cloud team here in Belgium, those colleagues that do AWS or Google, they don't need access to the Microsoft environment, so they don't have an account on this specific CSP tenant that we're using. I'm gonna let you read this text for 2 minutes. I know it's Microsoft wording, so it's not maybe the most easiest way to read. So basically what it says is quite simple. You are not allowed to buy licenses on the tenant where you do your CSP business with. This might be shocking. So if you're using the tenant today where you do your office environment, so your Exchange, your SharePoint, whatever, your Teams, and on that same tenant you do business for CSP, basically it's not allowed by Microsoft. Except if you use the benefits that you might have, then because then you don't buy from a reseller, then you buy directly from Microsoft. But if you buy your licenses, for instance, for yourselves via TD SYNNEX, you cannot use one tenant to do both your office environment and your CSP management. So basically, you will need to create a new tenant. So you have one for your office environment and one for your CSP environment. The way we work at TD SYNNEX, basically. Is it difficult to set up a tenant? No. Will it take some time? Not that long. We did it yesterday with one of your competitors, colleagues, whatever you want to call them. The biggest step is waiting for Microsoft to validate stuff. Yeah, creating a new tenant, make it CSP enabled and associated with your current local environment is not that difficult, doesn't take that much time, but it's just waiting till Microsoft validates in every step the things they want to validate. So you create a new tenant, and then basically you have two scenarios. Or you move your office environment to a new tenant, so you move your mailboxes, your users, your SharePoint, whatever you have on that new tenant, including the licenses. And that's already an issue because, as you know, you cannot move licenses from one tenant to another, meaning that you need to buy on the new tenant and then ask Microsoft whether they are so kind to disable the licenses on the old tenant and preferably also credit them towards you. This is not our preferred scenario. There are tools like BTitan, AvePoint that we are selling and that are doing a good business in migrating data users from one tenant to another. But we cannot guarantee, I cannot guarantee to you that if you on a Saturday you do this move, on the Monday everyone will be able to work exactly as they were used to. Think about MFA accesses and stuff like that that might need to be reset. So our preferred scenario is scenario 2. You create a new tenant and you move your customers, if you have your customers linked today to your tenant, to the new tenant by establishing the customer relation with the customer and establish GDAP relations with each tenant as well. This is not such a big step, but it needs to be done customer by customer. Yeah, so that the big work is there in re-accepting or let the customer re-accepting the relationship with the new tenant for you. And also, as said, only customer that needs to manage, support your customers need to have access to this extra tenant or to the tenant is used for CSP. Okay. Temporary solution that we might apply, but we are really, this is only in cases where we see issues. We might use another of our PAC environments, our tenants, to temporarily solve this issue of linking tenants. But this is a temporary solution. We don't advise to use it because, for instance, you cannot manage your own licenses anymore and those things. So if only in case of we have this, let's say, plan C to help you out to get compliant towards Microsoft, but a temporary solution and only in real difficult cases. Okay, questions, remarks. Let me try to find the chat window. Chat.
No. Yeah, Eric, a quick question on this.
Yeah, Thomas. Yes.
When is the deadline for this? Because now at the moment we work, like you said, we have one tenant where we manage customers, but also it's also our office environment.
Yes. End of summer.
Okay, so in our case, it's best that we just set up a new tenant for the Microsoft partner.
Yes.
Agreement.
That's the advice to it. And basically, it's a three-step procedure. Okay, every step has steps within the step. So basically, what you do, you create a new tenant. For instance, in Ion, you create a new tenant in the purchase process, put a trial license on there, and then there is no cost associated, but you have a new tenant. Second thing is to make this tenant CSP enabled. That's a clearly written out procedure from Microsoft. And the third one is then to associate that tenant with your current global environment. And then basically you're all set. We will send an email with all steps detailed on how to exactly do what in which order. Again, if you create a tenant, that's rather fast. They have a CSP, Microsoft need to validate stuff. So that takes roughly 8 hours. So basically, if you do it today, you will get an answer tomorrow. And then the next step is associated with the global MPN you already have, which is basically a step of 10 minutes. So on the working time, that part, roughly you spend an hour maybe, plus the waiting time for Microsoft. The biggest time will be spent on relinking your customers to the new tenant. That we know is a burden because you need to do customer by customer. Okay, thank you for the question. Okay. Rule number 3. Okay. Another rule is basically you're not allowed to buy for yourself as a reseller. What do we mean is if today you buy a license via Stream1 Ion for your own tenant, you buy this as a reseller. You don't buy this as a customer. So basically you should resell it to yourself to be compliant with Microsoft, but you don't resell to yourself. So basically Microsoft says as a partner, you need to buy a license for yourself as a customer. So what does Microsoft call your own tenant is every tenant where you have 51% or more of the shares, they call it as being your own tenant. Give an example. You have your company today. which doing your normal IT business. You have a daughter company, for instance, a call center whatsoever. You own 51% of the license of the second business. Basically, for Microsoft, it is still your own environment. You're not allowed to buy yourself licenses for either of the two tenants. That's why we are moving your tenant to a tier 1 purchase model. So basically, meaning is you buy it as a customer from TD SYNNEX and not as a reseller from TD SYNNEX. Pricing wise, we don't change the prices. There is no project at TD SYNNEX to adapt prices because you buy as a customer, but it needs to be done. How to do it? If you have your tenant or tenants, just drop us an email and say, look, this tenant is my own, and we do all the work to make it a tier 1 purchase, basically meaning we change something in Stream1 Ion, and on the licenses, subscriptions, we remove your MPN ID to say, look, this is not as a reseller, this is bought as a customer. So how can you see that? So you go to your customers, your customer or your in Stream1 Ion. You go to the legacy Azure cloud provider or the Microsoft CSP cloud provider or both, it doesn't really matter. You open it. If it's not there, you can add it, basically the programs. It's on the right top, you can say add, and then you select the programs. You click on the currency, and there you can see allow direct purchase in market. If it's on, then you're buying as a customer. If it's off, then you buy to resell. Then you buy as a reseller. Small change, but it's an important change for Microsoft. So just drop us a mail and say, look, I'm company X. This is my tenant that I use for my own purposes. And we will do the work to make sure that you're compliant on that level with Microsoft. That was a short one. Rule number 4. This is, we get even more time. This is still October timeframe. It's the MCA, the Microsoft Cloud Agreement, or also called Customer Agreement, which is basically saying if your customer accepted the MCA before April the 1st, 2023, it needs to be accepted again. Why? Between April 1st and now, Microsoft changed the T&Cs to use CSP licenses. So it needs to be accepted again by the customer, that they know these are the rules, this is what I can do with the license, this is what I cannot do. For instance, NCE, you buy a license for a year, you pay for a year, point. So those things are changing regularly from Microsoft, and so that the MCA needs to be re-accepted every X years. So again, signed before April the 1st needs to be accepted again. Before October 2025, impact is you will not be able to purchase new stuff or to renew licenses if the MCA is not actively signed after April the 1st. This is important for your customers. Why does Microsoft say you cannot buy or cannot renew? Well, if you don't accept the rules to use the licenses, you should not use the licenses. Basically, that's what it means. So the MCA is signed by the customer or by you in proxy. But you need to put the customer information in there. We see a lot that it is someone from a customer as a name with an email of someone of you with a name and an email address of you. No, it needs to be someone of the customer who accepted it, and you say, I accept it in name of that person. So you can sign it, needs to be the details of the customer, because finally they accept the license. They accept the T's and C's. If you accept it by proxy, meaning you had a conversation with someone at the customers, you say, okay, they are aware, and I can say, I signed that this person is now aware of these rules. You're going to get a list of us. We're still building it because Microsoft is not, the list we have today are not exact correctly. We're going to send you lists out where say, look, this customer MCA is old, needs to be resigned again. Info is of the customer, so the name, email, and a company email address. So no Hotmail, Gmail, whatsoever. It needs to be a company email address that is listed in the acceptance, basically on all details. However, can you re-sign it in Stream1 Ion? Go to the cloud providers again, Legacy, Azure, or Microsoft CSP. Again, click on the currency. And then you see here the date is signed. So it's after April the 1st, 2023. If yes, you're all set. And we need to wait until Microsoft again forces us to re-accept it. If not, then you go to the update attestation. You fill out the first name, last name, the date signed, and the email of the customer. And you click on update. Yes. Now, if you click on update here, you will not see that immediately on Stream1 Ion. Why? We send information to Microsoft, they change it on the tenant, and they send us back the answer X hours later. So you will not, if you do the update, immediately get in Stream1 Ion the information that is signed again by at the date you've done it. We say see next day, and next day the information will be there. So it's because Microsoft takes time to process this change on their end. No sweat, if you accept it, you update, it will be fine in the end. If you see in October, oh, you get an error when you purchase something, because the MCA is not signed, you can at that moment sign it as well. So it's not say, okay, it's gone forever. Just be aware that renewals after I think it's the 9th of October will not be renewed if the MCA is not signed by your customer. And they will see that a month later because of grace period and stuff like that. So they will fall out without licenses after a month if it's a yearly term, a week if it's a monthly term. Okay, rule number 5, a very short one. On your customers and on yourself, all information that you enter in Stream1 Ion, in Microsoft, excuse me, needs to be correct also in Stream1 Ion, by the way. So enter the information the way it should be entered. For instance, in an address, a zip code in Belgium, Luxembourg is 4 numbers. It's not something like LU dash or BE with 4 numbers. No, it's only 4 numbers as a zip code. Otherwise, things will fail at Microsoft. Make sure that, like on billing information, there is an email address mentioned, a company email address, not a Hotmail, Gmail, or for instance in Belgium, Telenet, Proximus, whatsoever you have, VU, whatever you might have. No, a company email in the billing information. Make sure that is correct. The state, often it is not mentioned with an asterisk as a required field. We advise to always also fill in the state or the province, as we call them in Belgium, fill in that field as well. So, but make sure that the information is correct, that it is company information, that it is a correct name, that the address is correct. There are tests being done on the addresses of the customer. If address doesn't exist, it will fail and we get issues in ordering, renewing licenses for the customers. Okay, questions, remarks. I'm going to open the chat window again. Where is it here? How fast is React is making with moving and crediting licenses? Good question, Fons. So Microsoft is not fast at all. And the process is you need to purchase it first on the new tenant. And then we open a ticket at Microsoft stating, look, we have bought the same licenses or higher with the same quantities or more on the new tenant. Please cancel on the old tenant and credit those licenses. Give an example, you have 10 business standard on the old tenant, but you say, in the meantime, we're only 7 persons, and we don't need business standard, let's take business basic, Microsoft will not accept it. If, however, you say we had 10 business standards, but now we are 12 and we go to business premium, Microsoft will be gladly to credit the difference. If you have your 10 business standards and you go to 7 business standards on new tenant, Microsoft will only cancel 7 on the old tenant and also credit 7 on the old tenant. So it is really, it's not, and if they're willing to do that, sometimes we get a negative answer from them as well. So it is a risky business to move licenses from one tenant to another. We do it sometimes for customers as well, like in mergers or splits off, but it's always a difficult conversation with Microsoft to have that arranged. Okay. Yes, if that's possible, to keep it to the renewal date. Good question again, Fons. Or if you create a new tenant, keep your current tenant on the office environment, so you don't need to move your office and you don't need to move the licenses, and you could use a new tenant to do your CSP management. That's also a solution. And you don't take the risk that Microsoft will not accept to cancel and to credit the licenses. This. Okay. Questions, remarks, others than already seen? Okay, I know you will need to let this sink in a bit. No worries. If later today, tomorrow we don't work in Belgium, but okay. Over the weekend, you have questions, you know something is not clear, just drop us an email at hyperscaler.be@tdcinix.com or microsoft.be@tdcinix.com. We will gladly answer your questions. You will get, all resellers will get the procedure on how to create the second tenant, what are the steps, what are the attention points when creating those tenants, what I need to take attention for, what is the timing and stuff like that. You will get that email in the next couple of days. We are finalizing the procedure to be bulletproof on that level. Make sure that if you follow the steps, everything will be okay for you afterwards. Next session on this to be defined. Currently, there are no new session set up. We might repeat this session in June or even maybe in July, but we're going to concentrate now on building the procedures on how to create a new tenant, what are the attention points, and send out the mailing to all of you. More questions, remarks? Okay. You will get the slides normally later today, not tomorrow, but after tomorrow. You will get all the slides here. There will also be, the recording will be made available, so you can review the session if you would like to. Okay, thank you, Philip. If for now, well, thank you for being here. Again, don't hesitate, drop us an email. If you have questions, hyperscaler.be or microsoft.be@tdcinix.com. Thank you very much for being here. Have a good day. Let it sink in and come back to us if needed.